All right, so this is the last and final for this build. This has been a very long and arduous build. This rocket is a level 2 and it is actually a little bit more difficult. I think it needs to be a level 3, honestly. And the reason being is that there are slight nuances that if you're not paying attention to, you will miss. And you know, I made the first mistake. And I realized that as I was building this, after the fact, of course, because hindsight is 20/20, that I wasn't paying enough attention at what was going on. So let me point out some things to you guys, and this is why it's very important. This is probably on I'm going to say this is probably on the on Estes from when they made this rocket. One thing I want to point out is this. You have to pay very close attention. This is hard to miss here. This is the first stage of this rocket right here, right? This is how we built it, and this is telling us how we put the engine mount into the body tube of this first stage, right? There it is, and I've got it in there. However, I have it in there backwards, okay? And let me point out why that is. There's the end cap, right? That's the stop for that, that engine that we put in there. It honestly needs to be here, and the reason being, the way this thing works, right? Hot gases expel out the bottom of this thing, giving you a vertical thrust going the opposite direction, right? And then it's going to basically explode, right? You have that small ejection charge at the end. That's why we're using an engine that has 0 delay, right? Like a B60. This engine will have a 0 delay in it, and it's going to expel gases in the opposite direction. Now, ideally, when you put the other engine mount in, that engine mount and that engine will buttress up against this, right? These will line up, and the hot gases from that first engine will then ignite the second engine, and then this thing will continue off. But at the same time, the pressure, right? That's why we have those rings in there. It causes that first stage to blow off. Turn that down. Cause that first stage to blow off, igniting the second stage, and the rocket continues on, right? That's how the physics of this is supposed to work. So you put the ring there on this end, and what happens is all those forces from that ejection charge stay inside here, and this gets blown off. But if, and I think when we launch this, we will see when that ejection charge goes off, this first stage may not come off. Instead, that engine is just going to shoot out of the bottom of this. And what could potentially happen? Well, if it ignites this engine, and this is still attached to it, being that this is made of wood and paper, it's going to catch on fire. Now, granted, it's going to be hilarious and awesome to watch because nobody doesn't like to see. It's a double negative. Everyone loves to see catastrophe and calamity, right? And I think that's what this thing will be. I'm going to name this the Calamity Jane, I've decided, because I didn't pay attention to the diagram enough to notice that, hey, smart guy, you put the engine mount backwards. So that one's correct, right? This one is not. So let's look real quickly at how I missed it. If you look here, you can barely see. I do mean barely. I'm going to fold this thing up so you can look. You can barely see that that actually is the green little end cap. Little spacing mount, bookend, however, whatever you want to call it. And it's pointed, so it's supposed to go in that way. So if you guys at home watching this, hopefully you've watched it. You haven't gotten to this part yet, you're paying attention, that it's backwards. So when you build yours, make sure you pay attention to where that little green spacer is. This is wrong, okay? This is wrong. This guy needs to be here. And that way when you build your rocket, okay, and this is where it gets kind of tricky. You put your engine in first, you flip it over, you have to hold your engine in, and you put in the igniter and the plug, okay? And you can bend it however you need to so it sits on your launch pad. And then once you have your engine in, and it's designed to we have a little bit of clearance, just so those things will stick out the bottom there, you put your other rocket engine in here, and it should have enough tension, friction, that when you put these two together, they line up. And ideally you want them touching because you want all the hot gases and pressure really get into this second engine to ignite it. Otherwise, there's no telling what could happen because it's going to take a minute for it to reach apogee. Probably won't eject the nose cone and the recovery system, the parachute, and this thing just turns into a lawn dart. All right, and that's what we don't want because it will, especially with this giant nose cone. Boy, that's it. It's going to just destroy all this. I've seen it done, actually. I've seen it happen. This piece shatters and breaks. This thing just gets buried in the ground. This piece here just destroys the body tube and just jacks everything up. So ideally, when we build this, you got to pay attention to little things like that. But I think Estes, if you ever watch these videos and you guys want some, help on this, do a better job of identifying that this guy right here is the very end and this is the bottom. I think you guys kind of didn't do that well enough. It is very difficult to see that little line right there and denote that that is in fact that green end cap spacer. So that being said, for you guys watching this, do not do what I did. Make sure you have the green cap facing down, okay? I put it together wrong. Don't do what I did. Another thing I want to mention is also, if you look in here, you kind of say, wow, that's all that paper. So I realized a little too late, in fact, that perhaps gluing that bottom portion down there is not a great idea. And why is that not a great idea? The reason being is it gets in the way of this guy here. Okay, when that glue hardens and dries, it builds up and you cannot get this guy on. Why? The glue's in the way. So I actually had to go through and very painstakingly and tediously, using my X-Acto knife, reach in there and get just the first little layer of glue. Just kind of want to just like that. I want to just pull out that first little layer of glue, get it out of the way. Try not to cut the body tube too much, right? Because we don't want any extra gaps or holes for our gases to get through. And then it worked, but I still had about maybe a 3 or 4 millimeter gap. And I put these things on. It sat kind of like that right there. So I trimmed this guy here. That's why it's a little uneven if you look at it, okay? So I made those 2 mistakes. Why? Because I was trying to show off and I wasn't paying attention. It happens to the best of us. So when you guys are building this, don't do that, okay? Don't make those mistakes. Pay extreme amounts of attention to the details in this, and then also make sure that you do not glue down there. Now on this guy here, you can. It's not going to hurt anything. You're not trying to add an additional stage to this, although that would be kind of fun. However, on this guy here, don't put glue inside there on that other surface. Just trust that when you put the glue in and you push it down in there, it stays, that it'll do its job, what it needs to do, okay? All right, so now let's move on to the next and final parts to this. I'm going to go ahead, it's going to be attaching the shock cord, right? So we've already separated these, we got those together, we're going to tape those next. I'm not worried about the parachute and stuff, but we'll do that next. But what we need to do is we need to attach the shock cord, okay? So see, now if you look real quick back on my little soapbox here, you don't see that little ring, right? There's no little ring in there. It doesn't look like that, okay? So that's how I know that that part is in correctly, and the other one is in incorrectly. Now, see here they have you actually taping the engines together, which is fine because the gases will actually burn through the clear tape here, and then the blue tape, Scotch tape, is going to be what helps the engine stay in, but we'll get to that in a minute. Let's get back to the shock cord. So I'm going to cut out the shock cord mount right there and grab my scissors. We're going to do that right now. Now this I'm not worried about being all that perfect about, because the shock cord mount, it's going to be on the inside. It's going to be out of public view and I'm not worried about the shock cord getting messed up. So let me go get the glue. Now this does not take a whole lot of glue, which is fairly convenient. So if you pay attention to how they tell you to attach the where'd it go? There it is. How you do the shock cord mount. You want surface area, okay? So surface area is going to be 3. That's going to be the part that when this thing's folded up is actually going to be touching the rocket. So when you do it, you want to do it kind of upside down. You're going to drape the shock cord across it like this. What I will do is just literally just a small little tiny amount of glue right there. That's probably even too much. I'm just going to take this guy and I'm just going to lay him in there. Just like that. Okay. Now, you can add a little bit of glue to the top to number 1. We're not going to do that. I'm not worried about it because we got enough glue on number 2. So I'm just going to fold that 1 over. Just like that and press down. Try to push that glue that was on the sides as far out as possible. Okay, you can see it coming out down there at the bottom. Now I'm going to add a little bit more glue. If you look here in the instructions to number 3, just underneath it, put it on the right there. A lot more than I needed. That's all right. I'm going to fold it again. Okay. I'm just going to push and try to get that glue. See how it just kind of shot out there at the top? That's what we want. Okay, figure's going to get a little sticky. That's all right. Not a big deal. This glue, friction and pressure, it just rubs right off. Okay, that's it. All right. Now, let's look at the depth here. Right, 1.5 inches, 3.8 centimeters, 38 millimeters. And that is, they say, the middle, right? I'm going to give this thing enough space. They say don't put it right at the edge, because if you do, you won't be able to get the nose come on. You got to have enough space so the nose cone, when it comes in, right, this guy right here will clear, really, this piece from here to here. Will get in there and sit inside the body tube and not be impacted by the shock cord. So I'm going to use my finger when I put this in there. Now I want the very end of this guy, this piece on here, to be at least the depth of my second knuckle. But since it's going to sit on the pad of my finger when I put it in, right, like this, I'm going to go into about the middle portion of my knuckle right here. Okay, so when I pull it back, it should be about where we need it. Okay, now a little bit of glue, doesn't take much. This is going to spread. Yeah, that's it. And then I'm going to bend this part in right like this so it'll fit inside the shock tube. Now it doesn't matter where it goes in there. All that matters is that it goes in there to the correct depth. I'm just going to take, there we go. I like mine a little bit deeper so I have extra room for the parachute as well. So I don't want that parachute to get hung up. All I'm doing now is just applying pressure evenly and trying to push and move that glue all the way around in there, so that it will, now see, I'm putting my finger right where I liked it, and there it is, right down that second knuckle. I'm just trying to make sure that glue is evenly distributed in there. I'm going to take this first stage off so you guys can see down in there. There it is. Okay. All right. Now, if you look down here, we need to add the launch tubes, right? We can do in separate places like this, or what I'm probably going to do is making it one long one, because it is quite difficult to line these up, even on the same line, make sure they're pointed in the same direction. So I'm actually going to not cut it in half and glue the 2 individual pieces. I'm going to one individual piece, and we'll use it like that. Okay, let me go grab that. There it is. There we go. And then we'll also get to how do you apply the water slide decals. There's the parachute. So launch lug line, where is it? There it is, right there. Now if you look at their instructions, they say you want one in the middle and then one further up on the same line. We're just going to put the whole thing down here in the middle, but I'm actually going to put it right in the edge over the fins stop on that line there. So let's get this guy here. Light little bit of glue. I'm going to do it the fast way. It's probably going to be too much glue, but make it work. There we go. Try to get that glue a little tacky. Okay. Just going to take this guy, put it on the edges like that. Where's the other half? There it is. Do the same thing here. Just like this. Okay. All right. Now, a little bit more glue along that top edge right here. That's the expeditious way of getting the glue on there. And now we will apply it on that line. Just like that. We'll move it around just a little bit, make sure it's nice and straight. Light pressure at the top. Let's see. Okay. All right. Now we can just set this guy up. And let's see, is it going to fall off? All right. That'll work. That will work. So that's how I'm going to do it. That's what I like about rockets. You can kind of do as you please in certain positions. Okay. So this guy here, it recommends we use. So look, it says clear tape on here and on here. The reason why I want you to use clear tape so you can remove it to put things in there. You can put small cameras. I have a movie Atom, which is this little guy. And look how small that little thing is. I can put in altimeters. I can put in both of those actually at the same time. I have these cameras here. They are one direction like this. They point down, so I can't really put that in there. It won't do much for me. You won't see anything. But I can put on the sides like that. A little cost to aerodynamics, cost to weight. But it's neat if you want to get those down the tube or up the tube shots. And the picture quality is so-so. You can put any number of sorts of things in there. So I'm actually going to challenge my kids to see if they can make this thing into a glitter rocket. Fill this thing up with glitter, and then when this thing goes off, see if we can't get this piece of pop off and the glitter to come out while it's in apogee. It's a little bit of a challenge, see if they're able to do it. But I think they can, especially if they understand all the forces and physics involved. Now we've got that hole that goes all the way through this. Problem is this is an expansion chamber. It's going to hold a lot of that pressure coming through, so they have to do something about that. But anyhow, I digress. So tape around both parts here, and then we'll attach the parachute shock cord to it. As you can see, the parachute comes in through down here, and the shock cord also attaches down here. So you're not attaching the parachute to the shock cord, you're actually attaching it to the nose cone. And then they give you the basic way of how to put in the engine plug igniter and launching it off. And that's it. So let's look at installing or attaching or putting on the water slide decals. If you look at, let's see if I have it on the picture here, where to attach them. Where we put the decals, they recommend around the centerpiece here, and then on the first stage, excuse me, the main body tube, not the first stage, but the main body tube, put the decals there. So we'll follow their lead and see what we can do with that, and I'll show you how to do it. You have to get a pair of scissors, you'll need some warm water, and you'll need this guy here. And I'm going to get the warm water, I'll be right back. Alright, back, I got my warm water here, I got my water slide decals. Now, these water slide decals, they can be a little tricky, okay? They're not the greatest in the world, but they work fairly decently. So what you're going to do is you're just going to cut out your slides, and you can get as close to that edge of the actual slide as you want to. It doesn't have to be super perfect. It's all up to you on how you want to do your water slide decals. So I'm going to do mine just like this. I'm going to cut this little star right here out. Tight fit. Alright. I'm actually going to trim off this edge here. Because this is going to be going around the circumference of the body tube right at the base of the nose cone. And I don't want any overlap. If you really want to make real straight cuts, because scissors can be a little tricky, and use a ruler and a X-Acto knife. That way you can get exactly the line you want. You don't have to worry about having uneven edges. So I don't want all the verbiage at the bottom of this. I just want Loadstar. Simple here. Just like that. Thank you for the legalese. No, thank you. Cut off all these extra pieces here. I'm going to take this, so you can see the difference between the two. I'm going to go ahead and cut this one right up on the edge, and then I'll cut the other ones. I'll leave the other ones as is. So here's one with the edges, there's one where I cut the edges off, and then there's my Loadstar 2 logo. So we'll go ahead and do this guy first. And here's what you're going to want to see when you do this. You want to see it kind of curl up. It's going to take a minute. You're just going to put it in the water and soak it. Now hot water works a little bit faster, but you want to see that kind of just curl into a little ball. Okay. I recommend you have plenty of paper towels around, because your fingers are going to get wet, but you don't want to get your rocket wet. So once you do what you need to do with your slide decals, make sure you dry your fingers off as best as you can. So if you look, these are one direction, right? So they go in with the direction of the fin. So that guy doesn't work, but that guy does. See how that works? Okay. I'm just going to let this paper soak. And what it is we're hoping will happen is the paper soaks up the water, and it gets in the way of the decal. So the decal will literally just slide off. And actually, you can kind of see, you can see it. The decal looks like it's already starting to slide off. So this may be done. It's not curling up like I want it to, but oh yeah, that slides. That's ready to slide right off. So the reason I call it water slide is you get it wet and then it slides off of the paper and onto your rocket where it dries, and you can it'll, once it dries, it sticks. So I'm going to take it, put it where I want it, just like that. I'm going to slide it slightly off the paper, pull that paper out a bit. It's sticking to the balsa wood a little too well. There we go. And I'm just going to slide this guy out just like that. Now it folded on me, which is fine. And there we go. Okay. And you're just gonna get the bubbles out of it in there. And then once it's dried, it will stick. That's it, just like that. Try to get all the bubbles out. Okay, so let's do it with this one here that I did not trim. I see it's starting to curl up almost immediately. Okay, it's ready. Doesn't take a whole lot of time. Probably left the other one in there a little too long. See, the paper is just ready to give it up. So we're going to slide that guy off, just like that. And try to smooth that a little bit. And I'm just going to slide that right out, just like that. And now I'm going to slide this guy. Try to work those bubbles out and get the wrinkles out, just like that. I get a little excess there. I can cut that off with a pair of scissors, but that's how you want it to look, just like that. A little smooth application. Leave it in there for just a few seconds. If you're at home and you're watching, you can count, see how long it should take. I'm thinking about 10 or 15 seconds. It shouldn't take too terribly long. All we're doing is trying to separate the decal from the paper. Let's see, is it ready? Yeah, there we go. Just move it around a little bit. Take it, slide it off just a smidge. There we go. Take my fingers and hold that down, and then just slide the paper out. Just like this. Now I'm going to straighten everything out. All those air bubbles, wrinkles. Okay. There we go. Let's do the name next. And I like to do the name. See how that curled up? That's kind of what you want to see. It curls up like that. When it relaxes, see how it's relaxing? That means it's ready. That's how it should look every single time. Hopefully you saw that. That's how it should look every single time. It should curl up into a ball and then relax. Now if we move it, see, it comes right off. So this guy I like to put opposite of the launch lug. So when it's on when the body's on, or the rocket's on the launch pad, you can read the name. Slide it off just a little bit. Straighten it out, and we'll pull it off just like that. Wonderful. Straighten it out. Just like that. Now this cardboard tube has a little wax layer to it, but that wax layer is not super great about moisture. So balsa wood, and just because it's wood, is going to be very porous, and it's going to soak up any additional water without a whole lot of deformation. But this paper tube won't. It will deform just like that. Now this guy, there we go. He's a little bit bigger. I'm going to help him out. Put him in the water. Make sure he gets adequately wet, and then we'll see if it starts relaxing. You may not watch it actually relax because I don't think there's enough room. So we're just going to spin around, make sure that all of the paper is thoroughly soaked, so we'll get a good removal. Now when I do the circumferences, I start in the middle and work my way out to the ends, versus starting on an end and working my way out to the middle. I think when you start at the middle, you have a better chance of getting it on there straight versus starting on an end. So let's see. Yeah, she's ready. So I'm going to put it this way. Now, I'm going to do it so it's convenient for me to do, not for convenient for you to see. I want to get on there right. That's the perfectionist in me. A little tricky, but I think we'll get it just fine. Now we're just going to work it around. Now I'm going to turn it, let gravity be my friend. I'm just going to work out these wrinkles. I think that's going to be as good as we're going to get. Now look, I want on top of the other one by just a smidge, but you can kind of see it. It's okay. It will still do just fine. Just working out those wrinkles. That surface area will cause a little bit more friction, which means this thing won't get as high as it should, and that's all right. Like I said, Estes claims it'll go up to about 800, 900 feet. No. Maybe if you use an oversized engine that this thing's not really rated for, it will. But you run the risk of never getting it back. So why do all the hard work for something you will never see again? You should be able to launch your rocket off a couple of times. 3, 4. I had one that we recently just lost that we've launched over 30 times. Oh well. We got our use out of it. Now all I'm doing is just adding these fillers here. Okay. Oh, there we go. That's how I do it quickly. Now when I send this thing on its end, okay, that glue's going to run south. And when it's time, we'll flip it. Okay, so I'm going to go turn this off now. You guys have seen how I've attached the slide decals, water slide decals. And I will actually finish attaching the water slide decals so you don't have to watch me. But they'll just magically be there when we come back. So see you guys in a minute. I'll be right back. All right, there we go. Finished. Fertig. Just does not want to look all that straight. There we go. So I decided to put the little stars on that end, and then the Loadstar 2 on this end here. That way when it's on the launch pad, you get to see the name Loadstar 2. And we'll see what Calamity Jane does on the launch pad. I'll record that video and show you guys. You can see for yourself. So a couple of things. Anytime that when you put on these slide decals, if it were to fold, like right over here, it creates a little ridge, and under the forces of friction, when this thing's screaming through the atmosphere, you're gonna have wind buildup on that. It's gonna be moderate, not even moderate, it's probably gonna be slight, but you know, it's a little thin piece of plastic that's sticking on there, not by adhesion, but by static. So this thing isn't like glued on there. It's sticking statically to these fins, and so like here and here, And what will end up happening, even this little piece right here, is that those decals will start to get ripped off, and I do mean ripped off, and they'll shred, and they will eventually come completely off. On here, probably not so much, but on these right here, definitely. So it's one of the things you'll see. If you got a, and you want to add the weight, a clear coat, you can add that over the top of them, and that will kind of seal those in, and they won't get ripped off. But you're adding pretty good weight when you put a clear coat on there. So I'm not even going to paint this guy. I'm going to let this go as is. I'm not going to paint the nose cone. I've added tape to the bottom down here, so it won't come off there, but I haven't added tape to the top yet. So that way I can put things in my payload, and I'll tape it before we launch. And I usually use the blue painter's tape because it comes off easily, but it'll stick on there hard enough to where it won't separate in flight when the ejection charge goes off. And then I got the parachute and the shock cord attached on there. I try to have as little rubber from the shock cord exposed, because as you're putting this guy in the body there, it has a tendency to get caught up around the edge, and it'll deform the edge here. So I try to have it as small as possible. I think I got maybe a little under ½ an inch of shock cord there. And then this guy, what I do typically is I'll try to straighten out the cord lines, the parachute lines there. So when this thing has the best potential for opening without getting caught up within itself. So the way I will fold this, so you guys at home know, this is a large parachute. This thing's going to have a good amount of resistance to slow this thing down. I'll fold it in half, and then I'll fold it in half again. Flatten it out, straighten it out. And then I'll even fold it in half again. So it looks pretty much like this. And then I'll fold it this way. And you can even fold it again one more time in half, like that. And I'll fold it, and I'll fold it again. And then you can even fold it. So I'm trying to really decrease the amount of space this thing takes up. But at the same time, I want to make sure that if this thing opens, just the fact that a little bit of air is getting in here is going to force this thing just to balloon open. And then what I'll do is I'll wrap this guy up just like this. Grab the cords, and I'm just going to wrap it just like that. Okay, and that's fine. That's all you need right there. It doesn't take much more than that. And then you can stick the shock cord into the body like this. Because when you put the shock cord mount in there and you didn't use a whole heck of a lot of glue, right? And just basically use a very tiny little bit, you don't have to worry about your shock cord or even some wadding getting caught up in that glue and creating a problem. So then I'm just going to take this and stuff it down in there, just like that. Stuff all the guidelines, everything like that, down in there. See, and voila. C'est magnifique. That's it. She's ready to go. Even just like this, I think it would be okay to launch. We probably would lose the launch lug because that glue hasn't cured yet, but it would still at least get one launch off. A lot of things that I do too is I'll take a piece of straw. It doesn't take very much, ½ inch, maybe not even ½ inch, about that much there, and I will just piece of tape. Find an open spot like over here and just tape it on, and that's all you need. That way, if you don't have the correct size launch rod, say you only have a 3/8 inch, but this is a 1/4 inch tube. Well, the 1/4 inch won't fit onto the 3/8 obviously, so the straw will. All right, so a lot of times just for expediency, quick purposes, I'm not use big words. For quick purposes, I will just use a straw. It's so much faster. So, plus these things, like I said, have a tendency to break off. And that's it. Put this guy in. There we go. You can offset, but if you offset, that's going to be more forces, drag against your rocket. So that first stage is not going to go nearly as high. You can line these up just like this, and then you won't have to worry about the drag getting in the way. It'll help out. So different things. You can actually go through now if you want to, and with a piece of sandpaper, just lightly hit these edges here and round this edge out if you want to. I'm not going to worry all about it. So that's it. All right, guys. Hopefully you got through all 4 or 5 or 7 parts, or how many parts this is actually going to be, and you enjoy it. So see you in the next build. Flight Master out.